Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Shine.com, India's leading job portal, we welcome you all to the 13th Hindustan Times Shine HR Conclave, the Pune chapter, a panel discussion where we aim to look at how HR can get the edge on capability on deliver the organizational expectations of today. The theme for the conclave is building HR for business growth. To set the context of the discussion and to outline the objectives of the evening, I will now request Mr. Zairus Master, Business Head, Shine.com, to deliver the welcome address. Zairus has over 16 years of experience in sales and marketing. He started his career with Unilever, where he worked for over 10 years in various positions within the sales and marketing function. Subsequently, he worked with Nokia India and Airtel. Zairus is a postgraduate in management from Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow. Zairus.
Good evening, everybody, and a really warm welcome and a thank you right in the beginning to come here this evening. I really hope that everybody has a very meaningful discussion today. And I really invite everybody to this conclave on behalf of the Hindustan Times and Shine. We've had 13 conclaves. This is actually our 13th conclave. We've had 12 conclaves in Gurgaon, Bombay, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, and we're back in Pune now for our 13th. So I welcome you all for it. And as we just said, the theme for this is building HR for business growth. If you really see, the controlled economic growth and challenging business environment have been a new mandate for the industry now. Though India still enjoys a relative advantage, but over its peers, but the impact of the global slowdown is here to stay, and it's actually for a longer period. There is hence a cautious optimism in the business world. And I emphasize the word cautious, because between two economic depressions, the corporate landscape has changed dramatically. Some of the leading firms that had a big past and a glorious history are no longer existing. And some of the big firms that we talk about today actually don't have any history. So what has defined success for companies? Within the turbulent environment, economic environment and business environment, successful companies have been those companies that have constantly imbibed change, companies that have changed constantly. Change is the new constant. And they have managed to stay relevant in the new environment, keeping pace with the changing times. They've gone beyond business as usual and refined the normal for themselves. In these companies, in these great companies, HR has been at the forefront. It has defined what the new bar is. It's defined how the bar gets raised and how the normal keeps changing. HR leaders in these companies have not only led, but they've led with energy, zeal, and enthusiasm, along with fresh ideas to strengthen the organizational resolve and ability to transform and create a better future. In effect, as the business scene continues to be increasingly competitive and growth gets defined by new technologies and emerging markets, HR needs to continually evolve and rebuild the new challenges and take on the new normal. Today, top HR leaders are therefore here to take on the agenda on how they are pushing boundaries and challenging conventional thinking. The discussions in this conclave, I promise you, are not going to be inconclusive. And so without much further ado, I welcome you to the 13th HT Shine HR Conclave, the Pune chapter, whose theme aptly is Building HR for Growth. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Zairus. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a gathering of senior HR leaders today who have experience in diverse fields. We have distinguished panelists from various industries, IT, manufacturing, financial services, the academia, and they have their experiences spread across different regions and countries. and we hope to have a really stimulating discussion with all of them. To kick off the discussion, let me introduce today's panel. May I invite Anup Ramchandran, Head HR, Bajaj Auto Finance Limited. An HR professional with 18 years of experience, Anup has a master's degree in personal management from Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Pune, and a diploma in labor laws from Symbiosis Law College. He started his career with L&T, post which he has worked with organizations like Asian Paints, Guinness UDV, Max New York Life, Future Generali, and Canara HSBC OBC Life Insurance Company. May I welcome Anup. I now invite Kavita Kulkarni, Vice President and Head HR, Infosys Limited. Kavita heads HR for 2 vertical business units and a large services line at Infosys Pune. She has 23 years of experience. Before joining Infosys, Kavita led the HR function at WNS Global Services for a few business units. Prior to WNS, she has worked for 13 years in a range of industries covering BPO, telecom, and manufacturing. Kavita holds a master's degree in human resources from Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, a bachelor's in law from the same college, and a bachelor of commerce from Pune University. Kavita. I now invite Dr. Shubhro Sen, Director, Tata Management Training Center. Dr. Shubhro Sen has been a co-founder and CEO of multiple businesses in USA and India. He also serves on the boards of several organizations in both countries. Dr. Sen has had an academic career for 10 years from 1982 to 92 at several Ivy League schools in the US. As a consultant, Dr. Sen has worked with over 50 global corporations, governments, and development agencies from several countries. Dr. Sen received his PhD in Marketing and Strategic Management from the Haas School of Business, University of California, Berkeley. He received an MS in Finance from the University of Illinois, Urbana, and MA in International Relations from Jawaharlal Nehru University, Delhi. Dr. Sen. I now invite Yogesh Padgaonkar, Global Head, Human Resources, Zensar Technologies. As the Global Head of Human Resources, Yogesh is responsible for driving employee recruitment and retention strategy at Zensar. Yogesh started his career with Mafatlal Group, followed by an entrepreneurial stint. He then worked with companies like Emphasis BFL and the RPG Group for the last 9 years. During this period, he has held various positions, including Head of HR and Head of India, Middle East, and Africa. Yogesh specialized in HR for his master's degree in management from the University of Mumbai. Recently, Business India magazine acknowledged Yogesh as a young achiever. Yogesh. I now invite Calvin Stone Lingdo, Director HR for Kimberly Clark Lever, to be the moderator for today's discussion. Calvin has over 15 years of HR experience spanning internet, FMCG, and telecom industries. Prior to joining Kimberly Clark Lever, Calvin was the head HR for the market unit at Nokia India, where he was responsible for providing HR leadership and direction to the 15,000 crore rupee business. Calvin started his career with Rediff.com, then an internet startup, and joined Cadbury India thereafter. Calvin is a postgraduate in HR and IR from XLRI Jamshedpur and has completed his bachelor's in English honors from University of Delhi. Calvin. I now request Calvin to take over. Thank you.
Hello, am I clear? Okay, good evening, Pune. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen in the audience over here, and good evening, the panelists. If you could hear what all has been said about the panelists, I think we have a very accomplished and distinguished set of people over here. And I'm sure that the conversations will be very rich, and at least we will have very strong takeaways after the conversation. So to start, I think we're all living in a world which is very different from where our parents lived. I think Zairus was saying that there were some companies which existed before which don't exist anymore. That's a fact. So 87% of Fortune 500 companies which were there 6 decades back don't exist anymore. So either they were taken over, they merged, or they went bankrupt. There's a changing economic landscape. If you take a look at, people are talking about the VUCA world right now. There's there's this currency volatility. There's a squeezing on the profits in the bottom line. There's huge cost implications. There's heated competition. It's burning everybody. And the conversation that I had with one of the panelists earlier was that there's a lot of, the strategy is not just a 5 to 10 year game plan anymore. Actually, strategy right now is a moving goalpost. When you look around also, the life cycles of products and services is getting shorter. Industry life cycles are getting shorter. The earlier life cycle is around 40 to 50 years. Now, the life cycle of an organization is around 15 to 20 years. There are mergers and takeovers. You take a look at Motorola being taken over by Google. Motorola is a very solid, strong organization. The company I worked for, Nokia, which I love very dearly, and then you know that within the next 2 months, the takeover from Microsoft will be over. So it's volatile, it's complex. When I take a look at leadership, CEOs, the tenure of a CEO typically in the past decade was around 10 to 15 years. Now the average lifespan of a CEO now is just 5 to 6 years. And you can see CEO attrition, whether voluntary or involuntary. And typically most CEOs now have a lifespan of just one tenure. Because during that time, they are so scrutinized by the media, by the shareholders, by the stakeholders that they may or they may not be having a term again as a second CEO. So with this entire perspective that we have right now, we indeed are living in a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. And I was having a conversation yesterday that in the Indian context, it's actually a VUCCA world, not just a volatile, uncertain, complex, but even a corrupt and ambiguous system. Okay? So now amongst all of us HR panelists, I'd just like to, HR and a business panelist over here, I'd invite from Dr. Sen to at least, you now understand that this is the new normal, this is the current reality. From your point of view, from your perspective, how would you articulate the new normal?
Thank you, Calvin. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I have to confess I'm a little bit of an interloper in your midst, in the sense that I'm perhaps not a career HR person. But at the same time, of course, I've been deeply involved in HR as a client, as it were, a stakeholder for my own companies, and also serving a variety of different companies when I worked with executive search firms. I served on the board of several. So I have a slightly different, perhaps, perspective and advantage. And I thought I also should clarify that in my current role, where as director of the Tata Management Training Center, which is really like the corporate university for the entire Tata Group, I'm responsible for the learning and development across the globe for, we have almost 100 plus companies in numerous sectors operating in about 80 countries right now. So I work very closely with the CHROs and the heads of learning of all those entities. So I'm perhaps going to talk to you from that perspective. The first thought I wanted to share, Calvin, is that there's never been, I believe, a better time to be in HR. And at some level, we're all involved because the oft hackneyed phrase that it's all about people has never been more true. So one thought I want to leave you before we get on is that I personally have come to believe that the term HR itself is a misnomer and doesn't really reflect what we want to do. The notion of a resource is something that you use, and once it's depleted, you throw it away, like a piece of coal or any other type of resource. And the notion of a human resource, especially in today's VUCA and very interconnected world, is anything but that. I rather like to think of it as a source. Each individual that we work for is a source, an infinitely renewable source, of energy. So the challenge of HR today is really how do you invigorate and stimulate that source as opposed to viewing them as fungible resources that can be changed. So with that, I'll expand on it later, but I believe that it is arguably the next frontier for differentiation Today, it really is about how you manage your people, how you engage them, how you make them productive, how you orient and align them towards company goals. So this is the age of HR.
Thank you, Dr. Sen. So coming back to the topic that we're talking, this new normal, and I think I also want to just direct the question to a person over here on the panel whose organization has been going through a lot of volatility and uncertainty over the past 6-7 months. And I think that when you take a look at the turbulent times, and turbulent times, the leadership exits and the leadership, the people walking in and out, no one else could be better to explain this than Kavita from Infosys. I understand that you've been living the VUCA life. So how does that play out to you? Can you explain your new normal in your organization?
So I've grayed faster.
You grade faster.
For one.
Okay.
It has been challenging if I look back at my career from where it started. We have the rupee devaluation 7 years ago, it was at 45. Today we see it at 62. Every client asks you for what is the value add. You have utilization, which is on every manager's KRA. Even if you are at 80% utilization, it is still a question saying, can you do better? Billing is always a concern. You have visa restrictions and the anomaly that comes with different countries trying to improve on their visa restrictions. Now, in all of this, you are actually trying to sell an oil of ole in an umami market. So the costing is of an oil of ole, and the market is commoditized to such an extent that everyone's leading to a price war. So the key for us, from where I come from what I have been hearing for the last 6 months, has been innovation, innovation, innovation. Sales has been, I think, working overnight. Not that they weren't earlier, but the stress is now on a blue ocean strategy. How is it that you enter or penetrate into a market that has really not been tapped? So how is it that Imami actually went ahead and introduced a men's fairness cream that was never there earlier? So I'm just giving you this example so that it fits in better. So with increased competition, with commoditized markets, the focus is back on improving your margins, increased revenues, and innovation, because sales comes back and says, how do you want me to sell when everyone else is doing whatever it takes to get that pie in the market? So it's pretty strenuous. HR has been asked time and again for a lot of data. I think my team continuously gives a lot of data today to anyone who seems to ask for it. But these are extremely interesting times.
Thank you. So Yogesh, if I was to ask you in the same industry, how does this new order, the new reality play out in your organization?
My background also is a little mixed. I'm not throughout in HR. I shifted to sales and I handled the P&L for 3 years. I was an entrepreneur for 3 years. And I understood HR better when I left HR. So as simple as that. Two things. I mean, we sometimes like to think that this is a very unique time and the world has changed. There are certain things which have remained constant, and there are certain things which are under change. What has remained constant is this whole industry was based on a very entrepreneurial kind of a scenario ability, and that continues. So I think that the fire in the belly continues, and I'm fortunate to be associated with IT industry since 1993, when we were not even recognized as an industry. Since that time till now, I think that entrepreneurship remains constant. The change is happening is because customer today is much more mature on their own understanding of the IT. And gone are the days where cost was the only expectation which they had. I mean, this is like, if I have to give an analogy, at one point of time, we had only Premier, Padmini and Ambassadors as 2 cars, and which one is the better, and your expectations from a car was minimum. That a thing that takes you from a point A to point B, and you are happy if it takes you without any incident. as the world goes by, your expectations go on changing. And similarly, today, the IT is no longer about fixing some pieces of code, fixing some technology. It's more about the questions, as Kavita said, a lot of questions are being asked. And do you understand our business? What is the kind of a value that you will deliver to our business? And to my mind, those are interesting questions because they make you think. They also give fantastic career opportunities to people. And a lot of new things are happening. So what is happening is that no longer you can sit on your past and say that, oh, hold on, I've done it for 20 years, I can do it for 10 more years, because the technologies that we are talking today, some of them were not even existent a few years back. While saying that, I don't want to dramatize this whole thing, because today, the Indian IT industry, if you look at the revenue spread, 60 to 70% of it comes from a huge support and maintenance revenue, which is to the large corporate, and that continues. So it's not that the whole industry has turned upside down. The challenging times are people are asking for more. People are not asking only for a cost arbitrage, they're asking for a value to be delivered. And the skill sets or whatever you need to do from a management perspective is changing. I mean, for example, in Zensar, we have a very simple philosophy. Even at a management council level, all of us, and I'm 11 years there, and I'm not the highest tenure there. In fact, I'm one of the lower tenures there. But all of us are at least on our third or fourth kind of an assignment. Because what we believe is that you cannot reinvent into market or into your own company unless you reinvent yourself. So the times are such that all of us have to reinvent ourselves continuously. You can't say that, look, I am in a leadership team and I am this functional expert. Everybody in a management team, and we follow this philosophy religiously, we are at least on our third or fourth assignment. And when I say fourth assignment or third assignment, these are distinctly different assignments, like HR to sales to operations to complaint. And that keeps reinventing you. People can reinvent themselves. They are more energized to reinvent in the market, because what you need today, if I have to put a finger on it, it's the fresh outlook.
Yeah.
Because if you approach the world with what worked in the past, you would be dead and buried.
Interesting. Okay, I just want to ask you, Anup, so do the same things play out in your financial services industry and in your organization? If you can just at least somehow share with us, how is it similar and how is it different?
Okay, slightly similar, slightly different, I would say. See, what I would say is that predicting change is becoming extremely difficult nowadays, and profitability is again a big issue. If I look at it from a financial services perspective, the cost of borrowing funds is very high, especially for an NBFC. At the same time, you need to deliver products, or you need to give loans to customers at a lower rate, because a few bips here and there actually makes a lot of difference to a customer. There are a lot of players in the market. I would also say there is a lot of impatience is growing, loyalty is reducing, primarily among a lot of stakeholders. You can say customers, you could say shareholders, you could say even the government authorities. I have worked with in the life insurance sector and in the banking space also, and I don't know, but I think there is a lot of regulatory compliance tightening that's happening, and I think that's becoming a more problem. A very big problem. I don't know why, but somehow I also feel that the number of frauds that are happening, the integrity, etc., is also going down a lot. I don't know, maybe because we are in the financial services that we immediately come to know of it, and then we burn the most. But I think these are the issues. For us, technology is not that big a concern. For an industry like ours, it's more of service that matters. So it's people that actually matters the most. So I think that's where HR plays a very important role.
Interesting. So he says that in this industry, technology. Yeah, I just want to really understand, because you have a divergent view. Of course, he's putting people at the core of everything. It's an HR conversation, so you have to say that. But yeah, what are your thoughts to what he's saying?
Let me clarify. Our industry also actually technology doesn't play an important role anymore.
Okay, so what does it do?
It's again people, as I said, because technology has become commoditized. Technology is coming and going, and people are no longer interested in looking with wide eyes in what is technology. They are just interested in what does it do.
What does it do? Yeah.
And it's so, I mean, if you, in our industry parlance, there used to be something called a waterfall development method for software. Everybody is talking of agile today. So I'm not interested in your processes. I'm just interested in the outputs and how fast and how value added you, and in that people play a vital role. So while technology keeps changing, the value of people keeps going up more and more. I mean, because you need people who will adopt the new ways faster, and that.
So basically there are two things. One, what we said was technology, which is your agile technology, and maybe how do we work in a virtual world, and you have 5 people sitting in a room in different parts of the country, but actually doing and working on a project. That's one which is more on the IT sphere. But when you talk of it from an HR angle, I think this is where skill comes into play. So if you've read the CII skill report that was introduced very recently, it was frightening to see the numbers. It actually said by 2026 we would have about 64.8% population between 15 to 60 years of age, and today, we only have 10% of the graduates who are employable and 17% of engineers who are employable today. So if we don't really act on this fast, it's going to be difficult. So what is our role, or what is my challenge today? When you have graduates coming in, they go to Mysore, they get trained, they're there for 2.5 months, and then they go into units. They're very happy with the technologies that they already have been trained on. So I have this issue on counseling, explaining to them that this may be your aspiration. You would want to get into this because this is your aspiration. So maybe we will be able to provide this to you, but not always. You need to take this up because this is what is where I have an opportunity available. So going back to the utilization point that I spoke about, the skill issue and utilization is actually interlinked. You have managers today who have 100 people as a team, and they would turn around and actually say, we have 110 and 10 of them is buffer. I've kind of kept them aside because I really don't know when I'm going to be using them. And then you have the staffing function of the organization who turns around and says, you really can't keep that buffer. What is it that you've kept them aside for? Give them to me because I need to then reallocate them to different opportunities. So earlier, 5 years or even 10 years down the line, it wasn't really hard-coded for a manager to give out a report on, these are the number of people I have, this is what they're doing, this is their utilization, and this is their billing. But today, each and every person, the skill that he carries is kind of accounted for. So it may not be technology, but skill is huge. So our education and assessment team that we have, which runs out of Mysore again, is permanently culling out various training programs on trying to move people, not necessarily only at the entry level, but even 10 years experienced people, 15 years experienced people, to try and get into a new training program. Because when I go out into the market, I have to pay twice, or I have to pay 3 times of the salary band. So it's always better to have an internal person trained. But to sell that to an employee, which was not expected out of an HR person before, is actually expected today.
Okay, so thank you. I'm hearing that skill nowadays is accounted for, resources accounted for, billing accounted for. There's always a billing, there's always a price in a person's head in one way, if I was to put it very crudely. Because at the end of the day, they're the one who contribute to the bottom line. So it comes to cost. I'm sure that I understand cost is one of the biggest things that we have to face in front of our CFOs. We have to face in front of our vice presidents or our presidents to ensure that, what are you doing in HR? You're spending money. Okay, you're cost cutting, but are you cost enabling at all? And that's a question that's being asked every time. And no matter, we will say, we found innovative ways of hiring, we're cutting down on outbound programs. Maybe we're just cutting down on leadership programs. Those are the obvious cost elements. So what are the things that you're doing within your organizations, okay? What are you doing to ensure that HR is just not a cost-cutting mechanism or a function, but actually a cost enabler? The other question is, how are you able to therefore metricize your investments? You're obviously spending money also. So how are you going about doing that? How do you explain costs? How do you enable cost savings? And how do you go about measuring costs in your respective organizations? Anyone? Yeah, sure.
I would like to go back to what Dr. Sen said in his opening remark, that resource perhaps is the wrong word. I mean, it almost has a connotation of being consumed and, commodity and something like that.
Depreciated.
Depreciated. Whereas if you all remember the famous Uday Parikh TV Rao book, which on the first page says that it's the only resource which appreciates over a period of time, and that's why it is called human resource. So I think that piece of HR today is far more relevant, because you are not going beyond a point, you are not going to do any value addition by cutting costs. Okay, I mean, those are given, those hygiene factors are given. I mean, your cost per hire, your other efficiency parameters are, nobody is even talking about them, they are almost taken for granted. Where you need to add value is that, can you deliver more with the same people?
Yeah.
And this is more a philosophical question. And a couple of things which I would like to mention out here. A is that in our industry, wisdom is not a function of hierarchy. And so wisdom can come from anywhere, okay? So we have something called a vision community, for example, in Zensar, and it is running for past 11, 12 years successfully. In fact, it is a Harvard Business School case study which is taught to the second year students there. Vision community is all about anybody who has an idea about how Zensar should go in the next 3 years. They have a forum to express that. And today I am very proud to say that about 40% of all our initiatives, 40-50% of all our key initiatives have come from this vision community. And what is a vision community? There's a young engineer who is 23 years old and there's a vice president. They both apply for a vision community through a process and they go through the filters. Finally, they present their ideas to the leadership team, where they are adopted by the functional leaders to accept. And this has given us immense, because today HR is not just a cost center. Can you get the best out of people? And that goes much beyond trimming costs and cutting corners. It goes into enabling the human beings to think more. So when a 25-year-old person stands and make a presentation in front of a CEO very confidently, saying that these are the 3 areas Zensar should invest in the next 3 years, it has a very, very different meaning.
So what's your argument? Typically, I hear you, but then if you're standing and you're sitting in front of a CFO, he still sees everything as a cost, right? And he keeps on questioning learning and development. They say that, I'm worried because you're spending so much money on learning and development. What if these people leave in the next 3 to 4 years? What's your answer?
What have you tied up to? For example, all of us love to carry the numbers like engagement scores and things like retention scores. So is anything that you are doing having a real impact, and is there any way of directly, indirectly correlating these things to what you are spending the money on? If you are able to give those answers, it works. I honestly feel. And second thing is that I think it's a fairly old phenomenon now that HR people no longer can just appreciate business. They have to absolutely understand business. They have to be part of the business. They have to talk the business. And it has been there for now for quite a few years. There's nothing new that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's an investment if you are able. It's just like any sales call. I mean, I do a sales call to my CFO and a CEO. I mean, saying that what is the investment I need and what is it that we can expect at the end of the year. There are measurable parameters. As long as you are able to establish that, I don't see investment happening as a problem, because we don't have, our biggest spend is on people. So if you start cutting cost on people beyond the point, we'll be cutting the flesh, not burning the fat. So that everybody is aware about. Because for us, 50 to 60% of our revenues is people cost. 50% of revenues is people cost. So we can't cut cost on people beyond the point. In fact, you have to keep investing in that. And I mean, Kavita will bear me out. They have a huge center in Mysore, which will give a run for money to any university running in the country. And that's not a choice. That's for everybody a must.
Yeah.
So I mean, unless you have a real problem in converting a HR proposal into a business proposal, I don't see a problem, honestly. I mean, I'm just taking a contrary, but I don't see a problem of investments coming in.
No, so I'm bringing this, I'm bringing in this scenario where costs are always being measured, people are being measured. you're being questioned, we're being questioned every time. I know rightfully you said that, resources is not the right word to say because it's a commoditized and it's a very maligned word in so many ways. But that question always is being asked. And I think that we sometimes need to bring a convincing answer. And we do struggle and fumble our way through and try and put a number, try and really account for it. Dr. Sen, any thoughts from your side?
Yeah, no, cost is important. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no question that costs have to be cleverly managed. But to oppose the point and to endorse what the other panelists have been saying, I just ask you to look at any vanguard, high-performing organization, not just here, but around the world. The one thing that you'll see is that there's a high correlation between the high-performing organizations and those that are the greatest places to work. And in fact, there are now funds that are based on that principle, that they actually look at, and this is not an endorsement of the various ratings and listings, but whichever way employee engagement and investment in the firm is rated, you'll find that there's a sharp correlation between performance and that. So that's the first thing that one tells the CFOs. The second thing you tell them is, what metric are you looking at? By definition, metrics have a short-term horizon, they may be. And so the largest education that they need, to the extent that they need it, and many are pretty vanguard about this, is that focus your attention on elements of the transactional HR efficiency. You must have good systems, invest in efficiency and cost optimization in those areas, shift certain activities, including recruitment and others, to mechanisms that may perhaps cost less, but don't shortchange your investment in the development of talent. And those that do are paying for it. Those, even certainly I'll give you the US example, those companies that had a knee-jerk reaction to the 2008 recession and laid off lots of people were the last to recover. Those that took more progressive practices that, evened out the damage across the people were actually recovered faster, had banner years in 2010 and 11. So the investment is more than recouping itself. It's a question of looking at metrics in a broader light, not just financial metrics, but perhaps more multivariate metrics, looking at not only retention, but looking at innovation, the value of innovation. Sometimes those things are lagged. So I think narrow views, Calvin, can actually lead to this long-term seeds of demise in the company. So I think any vanguard organization is not really looking at it as narrowly as that. Having said that, the onus is on the HR or the human source professionals, as I was calling them, to demonstrate value. And from a learning and development standpoint, is to make things much more outcome-based. Today, when I engage professors, and we get universities from all around the world, we have the very best professors available and money can buy type of thing, I still put the onus on them saying, what outcome can I expect from having sent 20 of my top leaders into your program? Frame that outcome for me. Am I going to get 10 new business ideas? Am I going to get a leader who is now more self-aware and can energize their organization? Now, it's hard to put a number on that, especially in a finite time horizon. So I think you've got to have the sophistication to be more granular in your purview of these things and really look at and keep your goals, your organization goals in mind. So, so that's my standard spiel to the CFOs. Don't look at that number. Talk to me after 5 years. And when we're looking at that inflated ROI or ROIC or ROA, that's when you'll get
I'm happy
your
you're saying
return.
this because now I can frame a response to my CFO. So thank you for that because we've been struggling this. Some members of my team over here, we're just cost cutting. And what for? We don't know because we need to increase gross margins. Thankfully, we're not cutting salaries. But yes, at least somehow I have a perspective now. So thank you for that.
Certainly.